Welcome, it's Gene from maverickstar Observatory. As you've seen from some of the earlier photos and video footage of the floods that have occurred over the last few days around Europe, it's not just Europe, is it? We don't have to do too much of a search on Google to find floods in India, floods in UK, Australia, the US, China, Pakistan, and you name it. You just keep going down the search engine and you will come up with thousands and thousands of hits and pages after pages after pages of news about floods hitting somewhere around the world. And in one of the particular last screenshots I showed you, there was something like 165,000 hectares of cropland gone. That was the same case for a lot of places around Europe and all over the world. That's our food bowl dwindling away. We've never had so many people on this planet as we have today, and that is their food bowl dwindling away. You know, we are heavily reliant on imports and exports of goods from all around the world. What we're seeing is, you know, countries now ban the exports of certain goods, and this is going to become more frequent. So you may not see at some point particular items in the shops that you've been accustomed to, like we have at a few occasions here, even in the UK. Certain salad packs not being able to turn up in the shop for one reason or another. I do remember early on in the year when the lockdown happened and there was a travel ban pretty much across Europe. We couldn't get the European workers here to pick the crops, like salad packs, cucumbers and things like that. As a result, they ended up in the fields and not going to the shops. So, you know, as I keep saying, if we don't see a midway point, this is going to continue to get worse and worse. And, you know, I've said many times, we haven't reached equilibrium on just this. We haven't seen the worst of the weather to come. There is a lot worse. And you know, with the grand solar minimum not producing a certain amount of sunspots, in turn inflating the heliosphere, in turn protecting us from galactic and intergalactic cosmic radiation, then we're going to get more cloud seeding take place, and as a result we're going to see the jet streams yonder well beyond polar jet stream, 60 degrees north, and into the subtropical jet stream. We're going to see mixing of the two around 30 degrees, and as a result of that we are going to get these weather extremes. It's not just floods. Here in the UK over the last day, it was reported we have a month's worth of rain fall in one night. So you can imagine, even in our Western technological advanced worlds, we're unable to deal with the floods that we're getting. At this point, the floods will increase in magnitude as time goes forward, guys. Trust me on that. And, with things like COVID-19, putting millions out of work this month because the end of the furlough scheme in the UK comes to an end. That's the government support for businesses struggling at the moment to go about their business as normal. That just means that people are going to be defaulting on their loans, their mortgages, and as a result of that we're going to see more people becoming homeless on the street, and this is already noticeable here in Coventry, in Birmingham, and I dare say not just related to cities in the UK, but all over Europe and the United States. I was watching a documentary on RT News today, and it was talking about the homeless people and how they're criminalised by being homeless. So if you've got nowhere to go and there is no hostels for you to go to, and you're having to put up a tent to keep yourself alive in certain circumstances, depending on what time of the year it is and the weather conditions, you will be given a ticket. And if you're out of a job and you don't have a home, and you probably don't have any ID, I believe even that's an offence, then you'll be given another ticket. This one guy got given 10 tickets. He's homeless, he doesn't have a job, so when he goes to court he's going to get put in jail, isn't he? And this is a situation where millions of people in the coming weeks, and months here in the UK, Europe, America, Australia, Canada, New Zealand are going to be faced with the same. And this is what we do to desperate people in this modern world. We criminalise them instead of helping them. When people end up on the streets, you do know and realise that it is the environment which puts them in a certain mindset, and a lot of them try to escape that mindset probably by first taking alcohol. So the problems begin to increase even more, and then maybe even drugs, and maybe a cocktail of the both. So now we have people that are homeless, out of work, that are, socially no longer able to interact, and on top of that they're druggies, and they've probably been in jail for minor offences. How do we then begin to rehabilitate that person and put them back on the straight and narrow when there are no jobs, because of the technological advancements have now taken the jobs away at an alarming rate? We don't need an intensive labour force, but we still have a problem now with an ever increasing number of homeless people not working, and falling sadly to the only release valve that they can get, which is drugs and alcohol. To try and rehabilitate somebody at that level when they've gone down that far is going to be very, very costly. And we should all be putting pressure on our local authorities and governments and mayors to do more about it, to prevent the problem becoming a very costly problem further on down the road. And more needs to be done to help these people, more social housing, and more experts that are in a situation where they can understand the needs of these people and guide them through the system where they can get help. All I can say is probably all of us are vulnerable to this at the moment. If you think you're not, then it's probably just a matter of time. The ladder where the poor are clinging onto, and just above them the middle class, is sinking in the quicksand, and they are going beneath the waves, just like the middle class now are up to their necks. And if you think that the foundations will stop at the middle class, then you're wrong, because once you start to cut the roots of society, you then cut the roots of the feeding nutrients that goes to even the rich and the elite. And if they are too stupid to realise that, then it is only a matter of time before that becomes a reality to them, even those that are 5%. They may be at the top of the ladder, and they may be the last to come down, but I can guarantee you they will. What we need to do is start, putting, in my view, better foundations down, so this ladder does no longer seep into the mud and under the water. We need to have a little bit better of a structure, and not just idle promises like what we've heard today from Boris the Bubble Johnson. The guy that can't even string a sentence out without stuttering severely, and he doesn't seem to be in a position, in my view, to be leading anything at all. I wouldn't even put him in trust with the circus at the moment. He's talking about things like 2030 having one of the greenest energy providing systems that would be the envy of the world. And he's talking about wind generation, which costs the utility payee, the person that buys the energy at the end of the day, the most money. You pay more money for wind generative energy and renewables like solar panel energy than you do for anything else. And as other people have recently started now to talk about these, solar panels are starting to become undesirable for the simple fact that when they reach their end life cycle and it is time to recycle them, it is a very expensive process to get that material back out of them without it being very costly. And now people are obviously incorporating this in the cost of not just the purchase of solar panels, but all the other things that are needed to store the energy. And when you add in now the cost of recycling the materials at end of life use, you find that these things are no longer you know, attractive forms of energy production. And like I say, if you look at your energy bill, your utility bill, you will see that these are the dearest forms of energy that is produced, and it is nevertheless added to your electricity bill because, you know, certain companies bill you for it all. However it's made: power plant, nuclear power, wind generation, solar panel, hydropower, it doesn't matter. You know, these renewables are not the most exotically cheap ones to have, and this is what Boris the Bubble Johnson is spouting at 2030. But you know, he's forgot one thing, right? He is being very complacent here, and you know, he's trying to pull the wool over the British public's eyelids by saying 2030 because he hasn't even got through the next election in 4 years' time. And with the way he's managed COVID-19 this year, with the colossal failures of not even having a system in place for track and trace, let alone a reliable testing system, he has massively showed us his incompetencies, and for that reason, you know, it is unlikely he will be elected. And I do predict that way before 4 years comes, where he's next up for election, he will even be in power, because I think he will have been forced by that point to resign. I reckon we could even see it before the end of this year. I really can, because if you look every time the press show you a photo of him, he's got his head in his hands. He just can't cope with what's going on. It's out of control. He's got too many of his private buddies on the bankroll of these private companies that are managing this, when we had already the NHS system, which would have been the system to manage every aspect of this health problem that we're now faced with. Even though, you know, I still believe it's nothing more than a common cold with a new name, COVID-19. I'm pretty sure most of you will agree with me that you know, who are these people that are dying of this virus, and are they on the death certificates really being put down as COVID-19, when, you know, in a lot of circumstances, even doctors that have come out and said, look, they didn't die of COVID-19. They don't give any credit for pneumonia anymore, and every year we had tens of thousands of people dying of pneumonia. What have we had today? 42,000 people die of COVID-19. I bet you, if you could get onto the statistics, you would see that more people have died of common cold, pneumonia. But there you go. You know, it isn't so much of whether it's a virus or not, it's the human rights that are being slaughtered and chopped down to nothing. I mean, we have seen it all this year, and you guys as well, in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, around Europe, you've all seen the same as what we have here. Human rights be obliterated. And we're seeing the suppression of information, you know, the freedom of information here on YouTube and on other social media outlets, because simply they cannot no longer take the criticism that they deservedly get. And it is no different, like I've pointed out before, watching just before the Second World War started, where the German soldiers and the Nazis were burning literature so that people couldn't inform themselves. No different, only this time it's electronic burning of information, and you know, they should be held accountable. You know, we've seen people be demonetised simply because they won't toe the line and the narrative set by the governments and these organisations, and as a result they get demonetised, they get removed, and you know, there is no protest, there is no ability to demonstrate against, you know, a tyrannical government anymore, because, you know, with social distancing you can't gather. Well, the whole point of protesting is for people to gather in numbers and show the governments around the world that the behaviour is tyrannical and not accepted. Well, if they've taken away that right and made it illegal, if you organise such an event here in the UK, you face a £10,000 fine and possibly imprisonment. So that's where we stand, quite clearly. We're doing no service to the people that are losing their jobs, then losing their houses, then finding themselves on the streets. What we're doing is we're criminalising them, and in time we will push them into the arena of alcohol abuse and drug abuse, because there will not be any help there for them other than an officer writing a ticket and demanding that that person either pay the fine, and if they can't, they get took into court, and the next step from there is prison. What we're seeing is the states around the world try and literally force blood out of a stone. Can't be done. And we are by no means, guys, anywhere near equilibrium. I don't know if you noticed yesterday on the website we did put up Tucson, Arizona's data. You can go over there, select Tucson, Arizona. You can get that data, compare it with all the other charts that we've got on there if you're interested in what's taking place with regards to the magnetic intensity in different locations around the world. And we will be doing tomorrow our Earth Health at a glance for you as well. Guys, there's a link down there if you want to help support what we do. Hopefully we do give you food for thought, and hopefully you appreciate the service that we provide. And remember, we're a little bit more bespoke than other YouTube channels. We've got equipment in several locations around the world, and we monitor with the scientific method of using equipment and record that and put it up on the website for you guys. And of course we are covering one of the major and rarest Earth anomalies ever taken place. As you know, 780,000 years ago, the last completed reversal on this planet. We're covering it. We're all over it, guys. So link down there if you want to help support or become one of our patrons. It's entirely up to you. Okay guys, you have an amazing day. Try not to let this information bring you down. I'm sure there is a silver lining on the cloud at some point. I'm hopeful that things will get better. We have to remain optimistic. As always, guys, bye for now.